So Hollis and I have been working together since about 2019, and we've done some pieces that are really about eco-grief, really about holding our climate grief and the grief work that we need to do, and other pieces that are really interested in how do we imagine ourselves to some other kind of future. And those two things are related, because as James Baldwin says, not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed if it's not faced. And so I think whenever we're looking at pieces, we're trying to get a way to really bring your body in, where you're at a kind of human scale inside of this giant thing. There's a thinker, I think he's still a philosopher, who I think is still at Rice University, who talks about climate as being a kind of hyper object. Like it's so big in space and so big in time that there's no way for any of us to hold it inside our human bodies. You know, it goes back to when coal was first burned and the earliest steam engines, and goes forward in ways that we don't even know yet. It stretches across the globe, but different things are happening to different people at different times. And so when we were conceptualizing this piece, it was for a gallery in Ohio, and we were trying to think about what are the disasters that would make sense in that space, because it's not a place that has hurricanes. And we were coming out of a year where there just had been such intense flooding. I think it was 22. So looking back at 2021, there was huge flooding in Indonesia, there was flooding in Germany, there were record-breaking floods in Pakistan, and that record has since been broken again, in India, in Bangladesh, in North Carolina. And I remember going home to my mom's tiny hometown in Kansas, and a nearby town had been flooded. And so there was just this sense like the water can come at any time from anywhere. And I lived in Houston, and I had seen, during the time that I was here, you know, I'd had that experience of the water coming up in my street and coming up onto my lawn. I lived here when Katrina happened and was working with people that had fled New Orleans and the convention center and the Astrodome. And then when I moved to Austin and I was seeing pictures of Harvey, those were spaces I'd moved my body through. And so as we were thinking about the flooding, the ghost image for me really was Houston. And then also feeling how once you've been in a flood, when you see a flood anywhere else, your body rhymes with the bodies that you see in that space, that there's something about what that means in terms of having your home taken over by water and kind of deciding what to do with it, that felt in some ways kind of universal.
So our work, we have been collaborating since 2019. Sasha is the poet. I make all the physical things, but you know, I was so moved by hearing a live reading of the first poem, which we just got a little bit of before we moved into the second, and immediately just asked if she'd be willing to collaborate with me. And I had no idea what we would be doing, but our work was kind of walking in parallel anyway.
And I love your pieces.
We have great admiration for each other. So that's how it started, and we've been collaborating ever since, and we've done many large projects. Like every year we do a new project with a new major exhibition. I felt that the work had to be installation, that it had to be human scale or larger than human scale. And so I like to play with that. You know, I'm really interested in engaging all the senses, so sound, flashing lights, which is what video is so great for, but also the hand of the artist, like the gesture of the mark, I think is really important. It makes it more intimate. I like it to be a space that you're invited to walk through, and I think that that's tricky as well, because we are tempted to stay on the periphery, but if you can walk through today, it's a different experience to be in it than just outside of it. And so I felt that the skills that I had could bring the words that Sasha so poignantly put together to a new level where people could engage with it in a visceral, emotional way. And you know, just as every good artist that went to grad school in the early 2000s, emotional things were not allowed. like in art school, it was very esoteric. It was very cold. It was very like, we're not using sentimentality. We're not using tricks to convince the viewer that they should be emotionally engaged with our work. And so this project has allowed me to move into a space where I can actually make those emotional marks, have this emotional connection, and create spaces for others to have feelings, because I think that that's the only way that we can engage with these kinds of topics and have any sort of effect.
Yeah, as Mateo was talking, I was like, this exhibition too is, yeah, I don't feel fine. I don't feel fine. And part of what we all need is that space where the news is not just pulling us from one thing to another, but we're really sitting with each other and thinking about not only what is happening right now, but where do we want to go? And what are the stories that we need about ourselves as humans and who we are to each other and who we are inside of nature that are going to really allow us to shift. You know, we're at this point that really could be a fulcrum, and we need to sort of have ways to come together and sit with the hardness and with the darkness and think about what we can carry forward. Yeah, and like Mateo, we love answering questions, and yeah, there's thinking about migration in this work too, because a lot of people now are having to move around the world because of climate emergencies, and that's going to happen even more. And also, if we allow the military to be the only people thinking about that, they think about it as a security issue rather than as a humanitarian issue. So so I'd say that's sort of one piece where there's a little bit of overlap.
So we'll take questions.
Are these objects here found from a site, or did you source them? Or can you speak a little bit about them?
So I've been using objects in my work for 20 years probably, and when I first started doing it as a methodology, I was, my grandmother had passed away, and so I basically was going through like actual things that she owned that were imbued with meaning, right? We attach meaning, especially to our ancestors, like the things that they owned, right? Humans attach meaning to all these things. So often the objects I was using, whether they were my real family objects, at some point I abandoned that and I just started picking random stuff up off the street. Of course, they weren't random things because, again, every object that I picked had a thought attached to it or a memory attached to it. So that's how I started using objects, and I do use them a lot in my work. For these pieces, you know, a few of these things are personal, but most of them are found. I was saying that I found this mattress. I had been dreaming about having a mattress, but I knew that I wanted to have more space for people, less for sculpture, so I needed something small. And 10 minutes before I left town to come here, I drove past a pile with the mattress. So I just think like it took me about an hour to collect things from Houston to get all the things that I needed. So I brought things with me that would fit in my car, and then I found more things. At first it was just this part, which was lovely, but felt too demure. And so yesterday, the piles started multiplying, and so I had to go and source more. But it's really just, my house burned down when I was 15, and so I do have embedded in my own psychology piles of debris. And so, like, they're very staged, and they're very carefully placed, but they are also trying to look like, you know, they were washed up, or it's the mingling for me of human-made things, man-made things, and natural things, and household things, and like things that are like in the world, like construction materials. Because it's that clashing where all those things that don't really go together are getting mixed is after disaster. So.
And it's really fun to come in and see, because I write the stuff and we talk about things beforehand, But then what it actually looks like in the gallery space is always a mystery to me until Hollis has already installed it. And so it was wonderful to see, to smell yesterday all of the palm tree branches coming in, and also to feel the way that that bench is kind of trying to hold back the chaos that's coming. There's just something, and seeing like the ball moss that I remember from walking around neighborhoods here. It's just, it's fun to come in and see how the different rafts of detritus are different in different cities.
How many different poems are, how different poems are in this?
Two, one specifically for this piece, and then one we used a couple of times in others.
So how did you like make the effect, and also what's the fire mean?
So, good questions. The effect, do you mean like the image itself?
The effect, like with the
video projections. Yeah.
Yeah, how did you?
Yeah. So the all the parts are kind of like collage. If you think of collage, like the sculptures, like a collage. I was telling George that everything to me is a drawing. So the video to me is actually also a drawing. The sculpture is a drawing because I just think in those terms of like how I put marks and lines and shapes together. The material is translucent, so it takes video really well. So projected light is just a great tool to bring the drawing alive. So that's the purpose of it. The imagery is part found. They're all things that I videotaped, but some of it's appropriated from Hollywood movies. Some of it's actual footage from a stream. Some of it's me photographing like these glitchy kind of things happening on a television screen. So I'm sketching all the time with video, like I'm just collecting video as whatever, and then it turns into material that ends up in the piece. So the fire is about violence for sure, and the water rushing. It could be calming, but it's also, it is a flooded scene, so it's kind of hinting to that. And this sort of glitchy image is this sort of like, man, technology, nature, like having this weird effect. So, is that good?
There's also 3 projectors, so 2 up there and then 1 in the pile that's projecting onto the image.
Yeah, so not magic, it's just equipment.
Yeah, and if you walk right here, your feet end up being in the water.
Yeah.
Because the water is coming from underneath. Yeah.
Yeah.
At some point I was realizing I'm standing in the water, I should move.
Can you talk a little bit more about how this collaboration is inspiring other collaborations in your practice?
Yeah, I have many collaborative projects coming up, and actually I've been working collaboratively with people since I was in undergrad. But I hadn't for a long time before we started again, doing our collaboration, which our collaboration is really deep. It did start kind of superficially, where I got your work and I started making drawings based on your words. And then, and we would talk about pieces, and so we conceptualize work together now, more so, and then I'm still building it. But we have been getting more and more, like what our goal, I think, is more transdisciplinary. There's like cross-disciplinary. There's which often it's like there's 2 experts and they're doing things that are related that then come together. And so there's a little bit of that still, but we really want it to be more like authentic collaboration where new things are coming out of it that we wouldn't have done on our own. But it has opened me up, I don't know for you either, but it has opened me up to other collaborative possibilities, and I have like 2 other big collaborations coming up, so with different artists, performers, etc.
And I think we've also started thinking about these spaces as ways to help people kind of gather stories. So While a lot of the trash is new, these lines are from a workshop that we did with people around the first installation of this, because it does feel like art is really, really good it's really good at approaching the questions that you don't have answers to, and it's really good at giving you the questions that'll make you go further. And so there's something about like once you've gone in and made something, you come out with these questions about the world that you really want to share. And so I think as we've been going on, we've been focusing a lot more on having community workshops and trying to use these as spaces to gather other people, and we're sort of working toward maybe having audience collaborative pieces that then travel, so that there's a sense of like, in Houston, this is what the experience of floods are. In Ohio, it's this. In LA, it's this. Yeah, so that you're physically mapping onto what other people have thought and been through.
Yeah, the work is really site specific in that way. It's always about the place that we're showing it in, which is why the introduction of the physical is helpful, because we're just literally picking it up here, or friends are donating things, or it helps create that connection to place. And although this piece hasn't been exhibited in the past, it's completely different. And I think it feels like it was made for this space, with this space in mind. And I didn't feel like that on Thursday, but I do feel like that today. Like I was struggling with it so much to get it to feel right. But I think this is the right version for this place, and it does feel like it belongs here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.